What do you do when life falls apart, when all you constructed, all you held to be true, starts to implode? The average person freaks out. They plead with the universe, swear at their fate, or drown in self-sympathy. But the Stoics, they did something else. They didn't flee from anarchy, they analyzed it. They met it with serene method. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire torn by war, treachery, and plague. Seneca was banished, deprived of authority, and compelled to confront death. Epictetus was born a slave, battered and broken, but went on to become one of the world's greatest teachers of resilience. These are men who understood what it was like when everything in life fell apart. And they found out something most other people will never learn. That collapse is not the end, but rather the start of clarity. When the world shatters you, it is revealing to you what is real. The Stoics thought that nothing outside of yourself could actually hurt you. Only your response could. So when they lost everything, they closed themselves off. They gained control where control can only ever really be had. In their own head, Marcus penned, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Those words were not penned in peace. They were penned in fire. As armies marched forth, as death swept through the streets of Rome, he penned them to himself as a command, not a comfort. When life went south, Stoics didn't bitch. They noticed. They didn't say, "Why me?" They said, "What now?" They felt that how you react to anarchy determines who you are, because it is simple to remain calm when life is simple. But when everything catches fire, that is where character shows up. So when your plans fall through, when you are lost, keep this in mind. The Stoics didn't pray for things to work out. They trained to stay firm when they didn't, because in the ashes of what had been, they constructed something unshakable themselves. When things came apart at the seams, the Stoics didn't attempt to regulate what could not be regulated. They embraced reality, harshly, truthfully, totally. Because the fact is this: pain starts the second you insist that life be other than what it is. Epictetus taught, "Don't seek for things to happen the way you want them to happen. Wish for them to happen the way they do happen, and your life will go smoothly." He wasn't talking out of theory. He was talking out of chains. Born a slave, whipped until his leg was broken, he discovered freedom isn't bestowed by circumstance. It is constructed in the mind. When all else failed, the Stoics espoused a radical form of power. Acceptance, not the pathetic variety, not surrender, but power through clarity. They stared reality in the face and said, "This is what is. Now what will I do with it?" What most individuals nowadays do is just the opposite. They battle reality. They accuse the world, the system, others. They become upset with the unchangeable, and by so doing they lose peace twice. First, because of what occurred, then because of their response to it. The Stoics denied that double loss. When the world changed, they adapted peacefully, deliberately, because they knew that though life might take away ease, it can't reach your character. That is yours alone. Marcus Aurelius wrote in times of war, "If you are annoyed at anything outside, it is not the thing which is annoying you, but your opinion of it, and that you can withdraw at any time." That is the Stoic secret, your judgment. The meaning you bring to things makes you rise or fall. A storm is either ruin or refinement. A loss can be the end or the lesson. The event itself is neutral. You are not. So when your world collapses, the job, the relationship, the dream, don't ask for the world to return. Ask for wisdom to respond, because that is where the Stoics found their peace. Not in fixing the world, but in becoming masters of themselves. When the Stoics lost it all, they didn't fall apart. They relied on something more powerful than hope, on discipline. Hope expects things to improve. Discipline works when they're still shattered. Seneca once wrote, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests the brave." And that is how the Stoics regarded the collapse of life. Not as a punishment, but as evidence. Evidence of how much mastery they actually possessed over their mind. When the world's noise retreated, they turned inward. They queried, What can I still do? And there is always something you can do: breathe, think, act, bear. Modern existence urges you to anesthetize pain, distract yourself, get on with it. But the Stoic drew toward the pain, not to torment himself needlessly, but to know it, because you can't defeat what you won't encounter. Epictetus would remind his students, circumstances don't make the man. They only reveal him. When his life came apart, he practiced every moment, every insult, a test of patience, every loss, a test of strength, every failure, a test of humility. That is what endurance truly is. Not just surviving, but enduring with purpose. Holding firm when feelings rage. Acting with reason when everything burns. That is Stoic mastery. When Marcus Aurelius was burying his children, when plagues ravaged Rome, when betrayal was from his most intimate friends, he didn't pull back, he wrote. He pondered. He governed with serenity. That was endurance, not denial. Hardship does not build you by default. It builds you if you withstand it wisely. That is why Stoics treated every calamity as training. They knew that life would not become easier, but they could become stronger. So the next time you're in pain, don't ask how long it will last, ask what it's teaching you. Because endurance isn't passive, it's the art of turning pain into preparation. And when the world around them came crashing down, the Stoics used stillness, not quieting of the mind, but command of it. They had learned that turbulence outside is nothing. If you master the turbulence inside, Marcus Aurelius was confronted with war, plague, treachery. But each evening he wrote to himself, not to the empire. Be like the rock on which the waves crash, he wrote, but it remains unshaken and conquers the rage of the waves. Those were not poetic verses. They were survival techniques. He was reminding himself that the world will never cease to be cruel, unjust, capricious, but he didn't have to continue to be disturbed by it. Stillness was not weakness for the Stoics. It was their armor. Emotions peak, and most men and women fall. They react, strike back, crumble under the din. But the Stoic hesitated, watched, landed a blow with design. For power starts the very instant you decide to be master of reaction, not servant. Epictetus instructed that there is always a space between stimulus and response where there is the freedom to choose. That is where your power resides. You can't keep the punch from coming at you, but you can keep yourself standing after it. The Stoics practiced that moment of pause like a bicep. Any insult, any reverse, any disaster. Another iteration at the gym of the soul. And here's the truth. When life falls apart, panic won't fix it. Anger won't change it. Complaining won't heal it. But stillness, deliberate, grounded calm, that's what lets you rebuild. Seneca once stated, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." The Stoic amidst chaos doesn't float, he navigates. As others are weighed down by emotion, he navigates with reason as his compass. He inhales, clears his head, and takes action. So when your world is crumbling around you, when noise becomes confusion, when fear creates paralysis, do as the Stoics did, be still. Not because you are denying reality, but because you are possessing it. Stillness does not equal stagnation. Stillness equals movement with force while keeping your mind rooted. The serenity that you create within you will always be longer lasting than the tempest raging on the outside. When the world fell apart, the Stoics didn't leap to repair the external world. They rebuilt the internal world first. They understood that the basis for peace is not stability, but spiritual strength. The Stoic did not wait for peace to arise from the world. He created it from within. Marcus Aurelius didn't refrain from writing because his empire was on fire. He wrote because that writing kept him grounded. Seneca didn't rail against exile. He made it solitude for contemplation. Epictetus didn't waste breath pining for freedom. He constructed freedom in his mind. They all knew one truth, that external order is a function of internal order. If you can't get the reins on your emotions, no success can rescue you. If you can't calm your mind, none of the peace surrounding you will matter. Then when all came apart, they started from where they had control. Their values, they maintained their integrity, even when nobody was looking. They exercised gratitude, even in defeat. They showed discipline, even when no payback was promised. And by these tiny, consistent actions, they rebuilt their world inwardly outward. That is what individuals lack when they speak of Stoicism. It is not about stifling emotions. It is about channeling them. It is not about being insensitive. It is about being transparent. The Stoic does not refuse pain. He works through it, examines it, and determines how to apply it. Pain becomes mission. Turmoil becomes illumination. Loss becomes freedom. When you cease resisting reality, you receive the energy to rebuild yourself. When you cease blame, you receive focus. When you cease expecting to be rescued, you become the rescuer. The Stoics demonstrated that change is not spectacular. It is humble, orderly, day by day. When life crashed down, they did not rebuild the same framework. They constructed something more potent, yet less complicated, and impossible to topple. Their mind, because when your mind is fortified, no collapse can destroy you. The world can take everything, wealth, comfort, reputation, but if it cannot touch your peace, you've already won. Ultimately, the Stoics knew something that the rest of us spend our entire lives trying to avoid. That collapse isn't destruction. It is transformation. Life will collapse. It always does. The people you rely on will depart. The structures you constructed will fall. The plans you devised will fail. But that is not tragedy. That is truth. Because only when all that is unnecessary is removed, do you get to see what is real. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." That is the Stoic spirit. The world tosses pain, betrayal, and loss your way, and you make light of it. You take the mess and make sense out of it. You take your wounds and you make them your strength. That is what the Stoics did when life crumbled around them. They didn't flee, they rose. When you stand in the embers of what once was your life, you have two options. You can remain there, cursing the flames, or you can begin to rebuild again, wiser, harder, freer. The Stoics rebuilt. They didn't rebuild the same delicate walls. They constructed something inward, something no storm could touch. Their peace, Seneca stated, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." All the challenges you are going through are polishing you, making you somebody who can bear true power, not broken ego. The Stoic didn't pray for smooth sailing. They prayed for a hard heart, and that is what you've got to do too. Because at the end of the day, life is not about preventing collapse. It is about how to rebuild each time it occurs, with less fear, more wisdom, and stronger strength. When the Stoics had lost everything, they never lost themselves, and that is the secret. You never really lose if you never let yourself get lost. So when your world breaks, remember, this is not the end. This is your beginning. Don't waste time wishing it were different. Stand up, breathe. Look at the ruins with calm eyes. Then take your first step forward, because what's being rebuilt now is you. And like the Stoics, you'll discover the truth they lived by when life falls apart. The wise do not despair. They become unstoppable.